Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, if we want to actually enjoy the show, we need to chant Hare Krishna, because it's a show going on. It's a transcendental three-ring circus. It's the greatest show on earth. Krishna. And we chant Hare Krishna, we can be detached enough from the thrills and chills in the show. We can be detached enough to appreciate the show, appreciate what's going on, to appreciate the Lord's energies and how they work, rather than becoming caught up in all the identifying with everything on the screen. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We can get a front row seat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Compliments of the Lord and His pure devotee, pure devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. We can get a ticket to ride. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Everything becomes wonderful, amazing, glorious. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Talk about having a good time. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. He's the supreme controller, the supreme friend, everyone's friend. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And He sends His representatives to invite people, invite everyone to enjoy the show with him. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, now and forevermore. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It really is all about the present moment. Mode of passion, it's one of the material energies, means striving for some result, which means in the future. If I do something now, then in the future I will get something. It's fruitive. It's not now. It's in the future. I'm going to cash in. I'm going to invest my energy now so that I can get this other thing. It's a mode of passion. It's under the influence of the material energy, Rajagun, and it's under the influence of the demigods, Guna Avatar, Brahma. The Kṛṣṇa consciousness is beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature. Has nothing to do with later date I'm going to get. It's right now. If we want Kṛṣṇa consciousness, he's in the present moment. Now it's a little hard to be in the present moment because it can be embarrassing. Like, you've got one of these bodies in one of these minds. Hare Kṛṣṇa. And it can be embarrassing because I would have rather had something else. I don't like this one. I don't want this one. I want something else. Well, there's a problem with that because Krishna's fulfilling all desires, and if you don't like this one, you can get something else. But if you want Kṛṣṇa, Krishna's in the present moment, and he has manifested in sound. Krishna is present in sound of his holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. And that's where we find Kṛṣṇa. We find Kṛṣṇa in the present moment. It's not over there somewhere. Like my father. I had a good father. I had a wonderful father and mother. I was very fortunate, considering I was born in the West and they were meat eaters. But, you know, they were pretty cool. And they really did the best they could to what the right thing to do was. And I'm totally indebted. Like, whoa. But he had something he used to say. He had a lot of little things he used to say. He got better as he got older, and the more, like, Krishna stuff I could expose him to, he was starting to kind of, something to this Krishna. But one thing he used to say is, look, I don't have any problem with God, okay? He's over there and I'm over here. He's very busy, okay? And he's over there somewhere. And I'm over here. I don't bother him. He doesn't bother me. He used to say that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, we can do like that if we want. You know, we can. Oh, Krishna, he's just in the temple, and I go to see him regularly. We can do like that. It's okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But better than that is that we can find Krishna in the present moment wherever we are, whoever we're with, to be in Krishna consciousness, conscious of Krishna. That's going to help us more than just keeping Krishna over there somewhere. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. We can find Krishna in everyone we meet. We can find Krishna in everywhere. All the living entities, what's going on in nature. We can find Krishna's influence. What did our spiritual master say? The devotee doesn't see a tree, they see Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, the last stanza of a song he wrote, or a poem, a prayer, something like, not to be absorbed in the past because it sleeps, and not to be concerned or try to live in the future, what's going to happen, because it hasn't happened, it may happen, or it may not happen. But to live with times that are with thee. Krishna says, I am time. To be in the present moment. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. However embarrassing or painful or whatever, that's only because of attachment, material attachment, that we see like that, embarrassed or fearful, or it's just because we're attached to identifying with ourselves as material. Our material covering, our material entanglement, which is temporary. And is always changing from moment to moment. Even this body isn't the same right now as it was a moment ago. It's always changing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So I read from Krishna Bhat, the summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, about Krishna and Krishna's activities, what's going on in the spiritual world, what his personality is like. It gives us kind of like a insight into Krishna's personality. And it's a summary study by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Krishna's ambassador. There are different kinds of pure devotees. Some, I was listening to an audio book I made of Bhaktisiddhanta's wonderful essay. I need to listen to this essay 1,000,000 times at least. Brahmana and Vaishnava. It is the most incredible essay ever. Everything is in there that anyone. It's like a Brahma Samhita or something. I mean, it's just incredible essay. Everything is in there from A to Z. It's all there. In great detail and authoritative, with references out the wazoo from the scriptures. It's just amazing. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So, I lost my train of thought. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So I guess I'll just read Kṛṣṇa book. Kṛṣṇa. So Kṛṣṇa, in order to agitate Rukmiṇī, said some really hurtful, spiteful, nasty things. Like, I didn't marry you because I loved you. I married you because the princes that I wanted to spite were all attracted to you, and they all wanted you. So in order to get even with them, I kidnapped you, but I don't really love you, and I don't have any good qualities. You know, I really don't have anything for you. They're all much more qualified than I am. So you're free to go. You can, you can divorce me. It's okay. I really don't care. Wow. They have grown sons, by the way. So he wanted to see her get angry, and don't talk like that. And, something like, in Vrindavan, Radharani, she may have come back. If he got naughty like that with her, she may have come back and been a little sassy with him. Or maybe the other queens might have, but not Rukmiṇī. Rukmiṇī was the chief queen, and everything she did was in total submission, and she couldn't be without Kṛṣṇa for a moment, and everything she did was just like in complete submission. And when he said that, she went into shock at just the thought of not being with Kṛṣṇa. Just the thought of it. So she couldn't be in that mood of separation. That just the thought of it, and she actually collapsed. She became unconscious. She fainted and fell on the floor. He said she fell over like a banana tree cut down by a whirlwind. So then Kṛṣṇa tried to take his words back because it didn't go the way he wanted it to go. And now that she's relieved and realized Kṛṣṇa was joking, he was joking, she's turned all his statements around to glorify him. So it's quite a long chapter, and she's taken every one of his hurtful statements and turned them around to say they're true. But they're true not in an absolute way, for the glorification of Kṛṣṇa. So there's a few more of her defeating. This is how she defeated Kṛṣṇa. My dear all-powerful son of Vasudeva, your statement that you have taken shelter within the water of the ocean, being afraid of all the great princes, is quite suitable. But my experience with you contradicts this. So Kṛṣṇa was saying, I'm really not even, I'm just a coward. Look what I did. Jarasandha was attacking, and I built a fort within the sea because I'm just a coward. So what kind of a royal prince or king am I? I'm a coward. Why did you choose me? Look what I did. I'm a coward. So Rukmiṇī is saying, your statement that you have taken shelter within the water of the ocean, being afraid of the great princess, is quite suitable. But my experience with you contradicts this. I have actually seen that you kidnapped me forcibly in the presence of all these princes at the time of my marriage ceremony, simply by giving a jerk to the string of your bow. You very easily drove the others away and kindly gave me shelter at your lotus feet. I still remember vividly that you kidnapped me in the same way as a lion forcibly takes his share of hunted booty, driving away other all small animals within the twinkling of an eye. So the jerk on the bow, the twang, just when he twanged the bowstring, that sound, that vibration, they all ran away. We read this before, but hey, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, I cannot understand your statement that women and other persons who have taken shelter under your lotus feet pass their days only in bereavement. That's a reference to Vrindavan, where when Kṛṣṇa was relating with in that realm, which is considered the highest spiritual realm, Kṛṣṇa acts like an ordinary person with extraordinary abilities, but they don't think of him as God with awe and reverence. They don't think of him that way. And so he can engage in different kinds of activities with the living entities there, his eternal associates there. And one thing he can do is he can let them feel that he's left them. And in that way, they're absorbed in the highest ecstasy, the mood of separation from Kṛṣṇa all the time. Now, he can't do that with Rukmiṇī. That's not her relationship with him. She's in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. She's in the position of the goddess of fortune. Actually, Rukmiṇī is an expansion of Radharani to accompany Kṛṣṇa in his Dwarka Lila, his Vishnu form. So the original Radharani is in Vrindavan in the mood of separation, but she's expanded as not only Rukmiṇī but all the goddesses of fortune in Dwarka to accompany Kṛṣṇa in his Dwarka Lila. So here she's making a reference to Braj Lila, but she's expanded to be with Narayan, Kṛṣṇa Narayan, in Dwarka. So she says, have taken shelter under your lotus feet, pass their days only in bereavement. From the history of the world, we can see that princes like Anga, Prithu, Bharata, Yayati, and Gaya were all great emperors of the world, and they were no competitors to their exalted positions. But in order to achieve the favor of your lotus feet, they renounced their exalted positions and entered into forest to practice penance and austerities. When they voluntarily accepted such a position, accepting your lotus feet as all in all, does it mean that they were in lamentation and bereavement? Yeah. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So she says, I can understand your statement that women and other persons who have taken shelter under your lotus feet pass their days in bereavement. So instead of referencing Vrindavan, because they are in a mood of bereavement, she references the kingly, or the devotees in on reverence and majesty. She references them. And that they left all of their opulence to achieve your lotus feet. And they're not in bereavement and lamentation. My dear Lord, you have advised me that I can still select another from the princely order and divorce myself of your companionship. But, my dear Lord, it is perfectly well known to me that you are the reservoir of all good qualities. Great saintly persons like Narada Muni are always engaged simply in glorifying your transcendental characteristics. If someone simply takes shelter of such a saintly person, he immediately becomes freed from all material contamination. The way to approach Krishna is through the saintly persons, like Narada Muni. Hare Krishna. And by coming in direct contact with your service, the goddess of fortune agrees to bestow all her blessings. It's interesting. Rukmiṇī speaking here about the goddess of fortune, like in the third person, when she is a manifestation of the goddess of fortune. But Krishna's speaking as if he's an ordinary person, so she's speaking like she's an ordinary woman. And that the goddess of fortune, over there somewhere, bestows all her blessings. But she's talking about herself. Under the circumstances, what woman who has once heard of your glories from authoritative sources and somehow or other has tasted the nectarine flavor of your lotus feet can be foolish enough to agree to marry someone of this material world who is always afraid of death, disease, old age, and rebirth? Boy, Shakespeare can't hold a candle to these performances. Wow. I have therefore accepted your lotus feet, not without consideration, but after mature and deliberate decision. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My dear Lord, you are the master of the three worlds. You can fulfill all the desires of all your devotees in this world and the next, because you are the supreme soul of everyone. I have therefore selected you as my husband, considering you to be the only fit personality. You may throw me in any species of life according to the reaction of my fruitive activities, and I haven't the least concern for this. She's speaking like an ordinary person. My only ambition is that I may always remain fast to your lotus feet, because you can deliver your devotees from the illusory material existence and are always prepared to distribute yourself to your devotees. Something like Lord Chaitanya's prayer, Kṛṣṇa, I might treat me roughly by your embrace, or leave me broken-hearted by not being present before. You're always my worshipful Lord, birth after birth. Now, this is the Lord himself speaking. What is this birth after birth? But he's in the mood of a devotee, aspiring for Krishna. So this is Rukmiṇī's mood also. See, yeah, Rukmiṇī is also there, that mood is there in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Rukmiṇī is an expansion of Radha. Yeah. So in his appearance as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wants to experience these things. the mood of a devotee in separation. My only ambition is that I may always remain fast to your lotus feet, because you can deliver your devotees from the illusory material existence and are always prepared to distribute yourself to your devotees. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. It's not exactly Vrindavan mood, You can deliver your devotees, because she's approaching Krishna like he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Vraj mood is, they don't approach him like that. And they don't even think about birth after birth or life after life. They just want to remain as an atom of the lotus feet of the Lord, because they're so absorbed in a mood of ecstatic love for the personality of Godhead without even knowing he's the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. He's just their friend, or their son, or their lover, or if they happen to be a cow or something, he's their owner, their master, even the inanimate entities can't be separated from Krishna for a moment. Krishna. Oh Krishna, my dear Lord, Rukmiṇī continues, you have advised me to select one of the princes, such as Shishupal, Jarasandha, or Dantavakra. But what is their position in this world? They are always engaged in hard labor to maintain their household life, just like the bulls working hard day and night with the oil pressing machine. They're compared to asses, beasts of burden. They are always dishonored like the dogs, and they are miserly like the cats. They have sold themselves like slaves to their wives. Any unfortunate woman who has never heard of your glories may accept such a man as her husband, but a woman who has learned about you, that you are praised not only in this world, but in the halls of the great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, will not accept anyone besides yourself as her husband. A man within this material world is just like a dead body. In fact, superficially, the living entity is covered by this body, which is nothing but a bag of skin decorated with beards, mustaches, hairs on the body, nails on the fingers, and hairs on the head. Within this decorated bag there are bunches of muscles, bundles of bones, and pools of blood, always mixed with stool, urine, mucus, bile, and polluted air, and enjoyed by different kinds of insects and germs. See, that's why it's a little difficult to be in the present moment sometimes. Identifying with that, man or woman. A foolish woman accepts such a dead body as her husband, and in sheer misunderstanding loves her as her dear companion. This is only because such a woman has never tasted the ever blissful flavor of your lotus feet. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare. There's only 2 rules in Krishna consciousness. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And the purport is accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness and reject everything unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. For some devotees, remaining renounced is favorable for Krishna consciousness, not to take up household life. For others, their minds are too disturbed because we have these bodies and their pushings and pullings. So there's provision. Take up household life, live together nicely, raise a family, and be Krishna conscious. It's not all the same for everyone. And then on top of that, there's different qualities. There's some have Brahminical qualities, some have like a Kshatriya for management and fighting and like this, and some have farming, plants and cows and corn and wheat and milk, and or they like to do business. That's also someone's. And then others, it's not particularly able to do like self-sufficient type stuff, and they help the other ones. They're helpers. You gotta have helpers. So it's not everything for same thing for everyone. The idea is to work together. And that the ultimate goal is always remember Kṛṣṇa, never forget Kṛṣṇa. That's the idea. Hare Krishna. My dear lotus-eyed husband, you are self-satisfied. You do not care whether or not I am beautiful or qualified. You are not at all concerned about it. Therefore, your non-attachment for me is not at all astonishing. It's quite natural. You cannot be attached to any woman, however exalted her position and beauty. Whether you are attached to me or not, may my devotion and attention be always engaged at your lotus feet. Again, that mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When you treat me roughly by your embrace, I'm always your servant. The material mode of passion is also your creation. So when you passionately glance upon me, I accept it as the greatest boon of my life. I am ambitious only for such auspicious moments. When you glance at me passionately, like Krishna. The material mode of passion is also your creation. Wow. So that was Rukmiṇī's countering the arguments of Kṛṣṇa. Now what's Kṛṣṇa going to do with this? After hearing Rukmiṇī's statement and her clarification of each and every word which he had used to arouse her anger of love toward him, Kṛṣṇa addressed Rukmiṇī as follows. My dear chaste wife, my dear princess, I was expecting such an explanation from you, and for this purpose only I spoke all those joking words, so that you might be cheated of the real point of view. Now my purpose has been served. The wonderful explanation that you have given to each and every word of mine is completely factual and approved by me. O most beautiful Rukmiṇī, you are my dearmost wife. I'm greatly pleased to understand how much love you have for me. Please take it for granted that no matter what ambition and desire you might have, and no matter what you might expect from me, I am always at your service. And it is a fact also that my devotees, my dearmost friends and servitors, are always freed from material contamination, even though they are not inclined to ask from me such liberation. My devotees never desire anything from me except to be engaged in my service. And yet, because they are completely dependent upon me, even if they are found to ask something from me that is not material. Oh, okay, I didn't read that sentence right. Try it again. And yet, because they are completely dependent upon me, even if they are found to ask something from me, it is not material. Such ambitions and desires, instead of becoming the cause of material bondage, become a source of liberation from this material world. Yeah, so even if a devotee asks for something, or desires something, they're desiring it for serving Kṛṣṇa. They're not desiring it for their own aggrandizement, for their own sense gratification. They're desiring it for serving Kṛṣṇa. so they don't become entangled. Maybe they want some money. Well, it's not money so they can enjoy somehow something. It's money for serving Kṛṣṇa. Or if they want a nice place to live, it's so they can serve Kṛṣṇa. So they're not entangled by it. I was talking with a devotee yesterday about this. The Kṛṣṇa won't give the devotee more than they can handle. Either distresses for purification or opulences. Won't give them more opulence than that would cause them to entangle in the material energy. So some devotees, they can have some opulence. They can have quite a bit of opulence and not be entangled. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had 2 wives, 13 children. He was the magistrate of Jagannath Puri, which was like being the mayor or the governor of a huge city or state. And he was also in charge of the temple, the big temple, Jagannath Puri, one huge temple in India. So that's pretty opulent. But he's obviously not entangled. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Or a devotee can live with nothing, like his close friend and the spiritual master of his son, Gaura-Kishora Babaji. He lived with nothing. He didn't have anything. 0. It's different for different devotees that have different services. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. So Kṛṣṇa clarifies that also. He says, because they're completely dependent upon me, even if they are found to ask for something from me, it's not material. Ambitions and desires, instead of becoming the cause of material bondage, become the source of liberation from this material world. My dear chaste and pious wife, I have tested, on the basis of strict chastity, your love for your husband, and you have passed the examination most successfully. I have purposefully agitated you by speaking many words which were not applicable to your character, but I am surprised to see that not a pinch of your devotion to me has been deviated from its fixed position. My dear wife, I am the bestower of all benedictions, even up to the standard of liberation from this material world. And it is I only who can stop the continuation of material existence and call one back to home. Back to Godhead. One whose devotion for me is adulterated worships me for some material benefit, just to keep himself in the world of material happiness, culminating in the pleasure of sex, life. One who engages himself in severe penances and austerities just to attain this material happiness is certainly under the illusion of my external energy. Persons who are engaged in devotional service simply for the purpose of material gains and sense gratification certainly are very foolish. Material happiness based on sex life is available in the most abominable species of life, such as hogs and dogs. No one should try to approach me for such happiness, because it is available even if one is put into a hellish condition of life. It is better, therefore, for persons who are simply after material happiness and not after me to remain in that hellish condition. So, when Prabhupada was speaking, he very rarely mentioned directly the word sex life, although he did discuss it quite openly. but mostly he would say sense gratification, material sense gratification. It's kind of like the gentlemanly, non-abrasive way of saying sex life. And that's very clearly linked here, that is the culmination of the desire for sense gratification. And persons who simply arrange their lives in such a way that they can engage in sense gratification or sex life, either licit or illicit, if that's their goal, then they might as well just remain in the lower species. They won't have to work so hard for it. Oh, that old Beatles song, "Let's Do It in the Road," during the hippie days. You wouldn't have to work so hard for it. Hare Krishna, perform severe austerities and penances, and if that's the only goal. But then again, there is provision for devotees to gradually become free from the desire for sense gratification. Gradually, there is provision. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. But as long as there's that desire for sense gratification is stronger than the desire for Krishna consciousness, you have to remain in the material world. And if it's really strong and there's no Krishna consciousness, then you're better off in the lower species. You'll be happier there, if that's possible. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Thank you. And now a time out for our sponsor. Time I am. Cuckoo, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Rama. Material, Krishna continues, material contamination is so strong that everyone is working very hard day and night for material happiness. The show of religiousness, austerity, penance, humanitarianism, philanthropy, politics, science, everything is aimed at realizing some material profit. For the immediate success of material benefit, the materialistic persons generally worship different demigods, and under the spell of material propensities, they sometimes take to the devotional service of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Sometimes it so happens that if a person sincerely serves the Lord, and at the same time maintains material ambition, the Lord very kindly removes the sources of material happiness. Without finding any recourse in material happiness, the devotee then engages himself absolutely in pure devotional service. Okay, that actually wasn't Krishna speaking directly. That was actually like a little purport of Prabhupada. That was Prabhupada's little purport there about material contamination. And he's saying sometimes it so happens if a person sincerely serves the Lord, but at the same time maintains material ambition, the Lord kindly removes the source of the material happiness. And then, without finding any recourse in material happiness, the devotee engages himself absolutely in devotional service. And Krishna takes away the material facility, material, and then they're free. In that case, the desire for Krishna consciousness is in competition with desire for material gain, or have some ambition for fame or wealth or power or whatever it is. They have some knowledge. Because if you look at these categories that Prabhupada says, religiousness, austerity, penance, humanitarianism, philanthropy, politics, science, everything is aimed at realizing some material benefit. So devotees who are engaged in these areas, they still have some material, they want some material, they have a material ambition. Religiousness. That usually aims at higher planets, heavenly planets. Religiosity goes to like heavenly planets. It's material. Austerity and penance, that is the strength of renunciation. Humanitarianism, philanthropy, Kṛṣṇa. Politics, science, these all have some material ambition to become famous, powerful. So humanitarianism, philanthropy become famous. Great philanthropist, great humanitarian. Ah, you're famous. Ah, Hare Krishna. Politics, powerful. In politics, you become powerful. Science, knowledge. These are all material, under the spell of these material propensities. Then is still strong, and the desire for simply serving the Lord is there, but there's like a competition going on. So the Lord very kindly removes the material propensities, and the taste for Krishna becomes stronger. Lord Krishna continued, "My dear best of the queens, it is clearly understood by me that you have no material ambition. Your only purpose is to serve me, and you have long been engaged in unalloyed service. Exemplary, unalloyed devotional service not only can bestow upon the devotee liberation from the material world, but it also promotes him to the spiritual world for being eternally engaged in my service. Persons who are too addicted to material happiness cannot render such service. Women whose hearts are polluted and full of material desires devise various means of sense gratification while outwardly showing themselves to be great devotees." So this material ambition blocks. That's what has to go. Unalloyed devotional service promotes one to the eternal atmosphere. Hare Krishna. What time is it? Hare Krishna. My dear honored wife, although I have thousands of wives, I do not think that any one of them can love me more than you. The practical proof of your extraordinary position is that you have never seen me before your marriage, and you had simply heard about me from a third person. And still your faith in me was so fixed that even in the presence of many qualified, rich, and beautiful men of the royal order, you did not select any one of them as your husband, but insisted on having me. You neglected all the princes present, and very politely you sent me a confidential letter inviting me to kidnap you. While I was kidnapping you, your elder brother Rukmiṇī violently protested and fought with me. As a result of the fight, I defeated him mercilessly and disfigured his body. At the time of Aniruddha's marriage, when we were all engaged in playing chess, there was another fight with your brother Rukmiṇī on the controversial verbal point, and my elder brother Balaram finally killed him. Okay, so these are pastimes that we haven't heard about yet. Evidently, when their son, Aniruddha, was being married, at his marriage ceremony, this is her son, Aniruddha, their son. No, he's the grandson. This is how old they are. I mean, they're not actually old, but how much has happened between the two of them. Aniruddha was their grandson, and at his marriage festival, there was a chess game, and that's what's being referred to here. And Rukmiṇī's brother, cheated. And Balaram got angry and killed him, finally. So Krishna is saying, at the time of Aniruddha's marriage, that's their grandson, when we were all engaged in playing chess, there was another fight with your brother Rukmiṇī on a controversial point. And my elder brother Balaram finally killed him. I was surprised to see that you did not utter even a word of protest over this incident. Because of your great anxiety that you might be separated from me, you suffered all the consequences without speaking even a word. As a result of this great silence, my dear wife, you have purchased me for all time. Hey Jocelyn, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Reading, I'm going to finish this little chapter here on the talks between Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī. That's the plan anyway. A couple more paragraphs. I have become eternally under your control. Krishna's talking to Rukmiṇī. You sent a messenger to me inviting me to kidnap you. And when you found that there was a little delay in my arriving on the spot, you began to see the whole world as vacant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. At that time, you concluded that your beautiful body was not fit to be touched by anyone else. Therefore, thinking that I was not coming, you decided to commit suicide and immediately end that body. My dear Rukmiṇī, such great and exalted love for me will always remain within my soul. As far as I am concerned, it is not within my power to repay you for your unalloyed devotion to me. Suicide is not recommended, even though sometimes things can get a little rough on the spiritual path. It's really, there's some devotees who have done that. And one devotee in particular, when Prabhupada was present on the planet, did that. And Prabhupada, he said that was not necessary. That was totally not necessary. It wasn't necessary. So we're hearing that, but we shouldn't, think that's a practical path. Actually, suicide means a person, it's not a guaranteed, there's nothing guaranteed somebody commits suicide that they're going to Kṛṣṇa. Usually what happens, 99.9% of the time, is they become a ghost. And that's a pretty miserable existence because they exist on the subtle plane and they have desires, physical desires, that they cannot fulfill simply on the subtle plane. And so they bother other people because they have bodies. So it's not recommended. There was one devotee in Chaitanya Lila who committed suicide when the Lord banned him from his association. The Lord banned twice, two accounts that I know of where the Lord banned someone from association. One was Mukunda Dutt, and he banned him because supposedly he lusted after a woman. But it was such a real stretch, that lusting. He went to the house of, I think it was Sikhi Mahiti's wife, and begged some rice and called her mother. And Lord Chaitanya said, oh, he was lusting after a woman, he can't kind, you know. No, that wasn't Mukunda Dutt, that was Chota Haridas. Yeah. No, he can't come in my association. He was lusting after a woman. I don't want to see him, he can't come here. And he was devastated, and he committed suicide. And then he was always with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Sankirtan movement, in a ghostly body. Lord Chaitanya could hear him chanting always, but he didn't have a gross body. So that's a pastime, and that's there. And then the other one is Mukunda Dutt, who used to go and attend different programs where sometimes they would be preaching Mayavad, sometimes they would be preaching Shankaracharya, they would be preaching different things, and he would just go there and sit there and be part of the assembly and hear. And he never spoke up, he never said anything to anyone, he never preached or anything about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya didn't like that. He said, I don't want him coming here. Let him just stay in those assemblies. Don't come here, just stay in those assemblies. And he was banned from association, and he was devastated. And he begged the devotees to ask Mahaprabhu when he could come back, if he could come back ever again. Mahaprabhu said, after 1,000,000 lifetimes he can. He's got to take 1,000,000 lifetimes, then he can come back. And so they told Mukunda Dutt, well, he said, after 1,000,000 lifetimes you can't come back. And he started dancing in ecstasy. The devotees were shocked. 1,000,000 lifetimes? Mukunda Dutt said, yeah, but I'm coming back. It's 1,000,000 lifetimes, but I am coming back. I can deal with it. So Mahaprabhu asked, so what happened when you told him 1,000,000 lifetimes? He started dancing and chanting in ecstasy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, oh, bring him here, forget it, just go get him. So, Hare Krishna. So the two different reactions in Chaitanya Leela for being banned from the association of the Lord. One was Mukunda Dutt, who became ecstatic to know that he would eventually come back, and was able to come back right away. And then the other, who was devastated to the point where he actually destroyed his gross body, and he was able to associate with the Lord in a ghostly body, chanting constantly like that, because the Lord could hear him singing and chanting. But it's not recommended. It's not recommended. But Rukmiṇī is saying this mood. She was so devastated, thinking that Kṛṣṇa might not come to help her. She might have to actually marry Shishupal. She was in shock over this. So Kṛṣṇa says, at that time you concluded that your beautiful body was not fit to be touched by anyone else. Thinking that I was not coming, you decided to commit suicide and immediately end that body. My dear Rukmiṇī, such great and exalted love for me will always remain within my soul. I am concerned. As far as I am concerned, it is not within my power to repay you for your unalloyed devotion to me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, certainly has no business being anyone's husband or son or father, because everything belongs to him and everyone is under his control. He does not require anyone's help for his satisfaction. He is Atmaram, self-satisfied. He can derive all pleasure by himself. without anyone's help. When the Lord descends to play the part of a human being, he plays a role either as a husband, son, friend, or enemy in full perfection. As such, when he was playing as the perfect husband of the queens, especially of Rukmiṇī, he enjoyed conjugal love in complete perfection. He can derive all pleasure by himself. He's not needy. Sometimes you might find that association with someone who's very needy. You're very needy. Like an ordinary child is very needy. Oh God, they need everything. They're very needy. But Kṛṣṇa playing as an ordinary child isn't like that. He's not actually needy. But he'll play like he is needy. Because he's playing like an ordinary child. But actually he's not needy. So in this relationship with Rukmiṇī, like in an ordinary marriage, the partner, either the wife or the husband, might be like very needy or envious or jealous or demanding, or those things might be there. Hare Krishna. But Kṛṣṇa playing the part of a husband, he's not actually needy. He's fully self-satisfied. He's Kṛṣṇa. So he's playing the part of a husband. And here, this is Prabhupada's purport to this little section. He says, as such, when he was playing as the perfect husband of the queens, especially of Rukmiṇī, he enjoyed conjugal love in complete perfection. But not because he was needy. He was playing. It's pastime. Hare Krishna. And from Rukmiṇī's statements, it's quite obvious she understands that fully. Okay, this is the last paragraph in this little section. According to Vedic culture, although polygamy is allowed, this is Prabhupada, none of the wives should be ill-treated. In other words, one may take many wives only if he is able to satisfy all of them equally as an ideal householder. Otherwise, it is not allowed. Lord Kṛṣṇa is the world teacher. Therefore, even though he had no need for a wife, he expanded himself into many forms as he had wives, and he lived with them as an ideal householder, observing regulative principles, rules, and commitments in accordance with the Vedic injunctions and the social laws and customs of society. For each of his 16,108 wives, he simultaneously maintained different palaces, different establishments, and different atmospheres. Thus the Lord, although one, exhibited himself as 16,108 ideal householders. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya, end of the chapter. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Kṛṣṇa is like the sun shining on everyone's head. If you go outside, the sun there's no clouds obstructing. The sun shines on everyone's head simultaneously. So Kṛṣṇa exhibited that kind of potency. The 16,108 queens, 16,108 palaces, 16,108 atmospheres simultaneously. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.